Welcome back, everyone, to the Burnout Club. This is a place where we explore burnout and success, one expert and experiment at a time. I'm your host, Patrice Bonfiglio, and I'm joined today by the lovely Sandy Fiaschetti. She is the founder and managing director of Lodestone People Consulting. Welcome, Sandy.
Hey, it's good to be here.
I have to tell the listeners this. I knew that I wanted to interview you the moment that we were on a hike and we had gone to a retreat, not knowing each other, but we were on a hike and that hike got very difficult very quickly. And I saw Sandy's calm demeanor and leadership and all of these great qualities coming out despite the path being about the width of my thigh, and downhill. And Sandy's just keeping it all together, being a leader for the pack. I was like, there's something about her that I need to find out. So here we are.
Here we are. We survived it, and we're here to tell the story about it.
Yeah. So why don't you share with the listeners a little bit about Lodestone Consulting and who you are to get a gist of things?
Sure. Lodestone People Consulting, we assist private equity firms and their portfolio companies with improving management team performance and organizational performance. And we do that through using human capital science. So I'm an organizational psychologist by training, which means I'm not a clinician, a clinical psychologist. I don't care about your mother, and I don't have a leather coach and all of that. I mean, I might care about your mother, but organizational psychology is all about the study of behavior at work specifically. And so we just apply that to our work with private equity firms and portfolio companies.
Fantastic. Was there anything very surprising when you went into this industry, or maybe specifically when you started your own company doing this, that you found was just a little bit different than you thought it was going to be?
I think my surprises came when I started my first company several years back with a partner, and just the surprises about the micro freakouts you can have as a business owner. Even in the course of one day, you can go from, oh my God, things are great, So that to me was a big surprise. Starting Lodestone, I didn't get that. I don't know if it was like second time around, I was a little bit calmer, And when I first got into private equity, everyone said, you're going to be surprised by the pace of it. And I suppose it did move faster than, some of the companies I had worked in before, like when I was in automotive for sure. But I don't actually think the pace surprised me relative to consulting, because in consulting, we're all about moving quickly anyway and meeting the needs of people. And so I was told that would be a big surprise, but I didn't really experience it.
Yeah. I always hear that too on the hedge fund side, that we're so much faster than the companies themselves. Yeah, I can see with consulting, you're always project to project. So that makes sense. Now, what is your favorite part of the people consulting business?
The moments or the services, or like my favorite thing to deliver, or my favorite moments, or you don't care?
Whatever you think is the most interesting. I'm agnostic.
Okay. So my favorite thing to do is work with leadership teams, like the executive leadership team, as opposed to individual coaching or assessment. Those are all things that we do. I'm glad my team likes to do the other stuff, but I love working with the executive leadership team because, so this is the other thing, the moments I love when they have aha moments. An aha moment is one of our values at Lodestone because we like to have them. But I love when a team says like, oh, I didn't even think about the fact that our decision-making process wasn't robust, and you gave us a tangible tool to use that makes it easier. Or I didn't realize the way I wasn't stating my needs or expectations was creating friction on the people I'm leading. You just, those are the moments I love, when people have those kind of ahas.
Yeah, I feel like I need that tool that you just mentioned.
It's so cool. It's not ours. Like, I found it online ages and ages ago. It's called the 6 hats. And every group I work with at the end is like, that 6 hats thing, we're going to start
Oh,
using it.
wow.
And I wish I could tell you who to attribute it to, but if you Google it, you'll find it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. Like, you have to think about, like, put the black hat on and think about what holes must we poke in
Mm-hmm.
this case. And then you put, I forget which one, your process hat on, and what might
Yeah.
the process be. And so you work your way robustly through decision making instead of the way
Mm-hmm.
most of us do it, which is we come with our own bias. Like, I always
Yeah.
think about the bright side, but I
Yeah.
need those other hats to
Mm-hmm.
make it a rational decision that's well thought out.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
How long does it take a team to absorb what you're going in there to teach them?
Okay. So I will use the classic consultant answer of it depends.
Yeah,
I have
should
to
have
say
known.
it at least once on this call.
Yeah.
Um, but it does depend on things like their own personal biases. Some people are
Mm-hmm.
more open to change and
Mm-hmm.
have a learning orientation. And these are
Mm-hmm.
things we measure in personality measures we use before we do a team session with them.
Mm-hmm.
But when people are ripe for that kind of stuff, they absorb it more. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
ground, right? If ground is rocky and hard and you don't till it
Yeah.
first, water doesn't soak in. And I think the
Yeah.
same is true for learning in people. And so when the ground is ready and it's
Mm-hmm.
fertile, they can have tangible results immediately. Now, we're all
Wow.
works in progress, right? So I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
about one of our clients who we did a couple of sessions with them. They were like, yeah, we're on board. But people slip back into their old
Mm-hmm.
habits, and then that's fine. We do these tune-ups where the CEO will call and say they're back to thinking about silos, or
Mm.
they're back to thinking the team they lead is their primary team, instead of realizing we are the primary team and they're not
Oh.
working well together. And
Mm-hmm.
this one CEO I'm thinking about says, you're kind of like the psychological chiropractor. Like, we can't get
Yeah.
too far from you. We always have to get aligned. And
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of like that analogy. And so we just,
Yeah.
we come back, do a quick tune up, a quick alignment, and off they go again.
Yeah. So I know there's a phrase that you hear quite often. I have really good instincts about people. So when you hear that, what do you say and what do you do?
I start to twitch.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me be less facetious for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, what they mean, and there's research to back this up, that when people make instinctual decisions, it's actually the formation of the thousands of good decisions they've made before that just get sort of embedded in who they are. So the
Mm-hmm.
synapses in their brains connect in a certain way, and they connect faster based
Mm-hmm.
on their experience. So even when they say it's intuition, hopefully they're talking about all of this. I think the thing that makes me twitch is when people say, well, I'm just a great person at reading people. So I just
Oh,
know,
yeah. Yeah.
instead of knowing, there's science to measure this kind of thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's when I have that sort of visceral reaction of, the would I have a beer with this person kind of a, oh, I liked him, I think I'm going to
Yeah.
hire him. And it's like, no, he's not going to be your neighbor. He's going to work on your team. Like, we need to be a little more rational and use
Yeah.
scientific assessment to make this decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's great. So when you are working with the company and the individuals, and everyone is at a different stage or kind of like readiness to absorb information, do you find that you're using more like inspirational tactics in the beginning, or is it like using the data right away and teaching the science first, like a lesson? How does it actually work?
Well, in practice, what we do is we start with what's sort of the gold standard of personality assessment at work. We use this,
Mm-hmm.
it's called the Hogan Personality Assessment.
Mm-hmm.
I never tell people it's personality assessment. I'm telling your listeners, but I always say
Yeah.
it's a leadership styles assessment. And
Mm-hmm.
then we do interviews up front with people. So we already know kind of the cheat
Ah.
on who they
Mm-hmm.
are and who's going to be receptive to data versus who's going to more require inspirational. And then we just
Mm-hmm.
bespoke the messages to give people what they need.
Yeah. I have to take that.
Yeah.
I've done some of the assessment. I'm a data nerd, so I enjoy combing through what it says about myself. But yeah, so I'll
Yeah.
reach out to you on that one. Uh, but let's see. So as someone who is a trained psychologist, you know the ins and the outs. What have you learned the hard way about burnout?
I can tell people the right way to do something, and I can have suffered some consequences myself of not doing things the right way. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's say. A couple of things I have learned the hard way. Even if you're ambitious and you want a great career, you don't have to say to no. I mean, you don't have to say yes to everything.
Oh
And
yeah.
early in my career, I made the mistake of saying yes too many times, I think.
Hmm.
Now I know in the beginning, you do need to say yes more often. You
Yeah.
have to have initiative and that kind of thing. But I'm
Hmm.
talking about like the time that I didn't ask for one more vacation day and took a 1 a.m. train that I thought I was going to be killed on,
Yeah.
in a sketchy area because I was
Yeah.
trying to hurry, like
Hmm.
I wouldn't do that again. I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
I missed like some family events and that
Hmm.
caused me burnout. There was one
Yeah.
year in Fiaschetti family lore of like, hey, remember that one year when mom missed all the birthdays and a couple of
Oh.
holidays, like those are kind of fails. And that contributes, I think, to burnout. And then
Hmm.
I was thinking right before I got on this call, it's still a work in progress, just like those clients I was talking about where they
Yeah.
fall back. We were going to jump on at 1 p.m. my time. And at
Mhm.
12:56, I was sitting here and I was like, "Ooh, I could probably edit that blog that I'm about to send out in these 4 minutes." And then I thought, wait, you're about to talk about burnout.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just sit still at your desk for 4 minutes and wait for Patrice. And so, but
Hmm.
like I would have run right to the other thing, right? Like you just
Yeah.
constantly remind, at least some of us, I think you have to constantly remind yourself you're not wasting time to take 4 minutes
Hmm.
here and 3 minutes here. That's part of your strategy to avoid burnout.
Oh yeah. I have to remind myself all the time. I actually need a visual reminder of something that's not work related so I know. I actually had good luck with the tiny Lego kit. You know, you could build individual flowers.
Yeah.
That worked out so well. It took me 10 minutes. I built something and I had my little creativity going on for a few minutes. I detached from work. I felt good about myself and then I went back.
Okay, I love that for you. And just know it would take me way more than 10 minutes because I just don't have any of that capacity. So for me, I have found these little micro dance break videos, like a five
Ooh.
minute. It's on a company called Nia that
Mhm.
they're not paying me to say that, but that, whatever.
Yeah.
And you can do like 5, 20, 30, but let's be honest, I don't do the 30. But a
Yeah.
5 minute dance break, like that just changes my mood.
I would love that. I might need curtains on one side
For
of
sure.
my office so
For
so my neighbor doesn't see right in. But yeah, I would actually enjoy that a lot. That's so funny. So while we're on that topic, what revitalizes you overall, like in a big way, when you
Yeah.
really need a break? What do you do?
Well, I go on retreats with people like you and
Hmm.
meet new people and do crazy adventures like that, like hiking,
Hmm.
through dangerous trenches. I uh, like, I'm not saying this but I love to be involved in my community. Like, I've done
Mm.
community theater.
Thanks.
I'm active in our church. Like, I need to be around people and remember that the
Hmm.
work world is
Yeah.
just a vehicle to make life better for other people as opposed
Mhm.
to it being the thing. And so that is
Yeah.
how I recharge. And then honestly, sometimes I'm up in the recliner binge watching White Lotus. Like so I really believe sometimes you need like
Hmm.
mindless. You don't have to always be helping somebody else or,
Hmm.
reading a business book. Like that's actually not downtime, So sometimes
Yeah.
I'm just zoned out scrolling on my phone watching White Lotus.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes my brain needs to download all of the information that I've shoved at it and I just have to just
Yeah.
sit.
Well, it does, right? Like I might be an organizational psychologist, but back when I was taking biopsychology, like your brain needs time to connect those synapses so that you
Mhm.
learn. And it has to have that time to do that. If you're constantly trying to add to it, it just won't connect.
Yeah. Oh, PhD at work right now. Love it. That's great. And you know what else I was amazed when I found out about you? That
But
you have 5 kids and you've raised 5 kids. They're grown now, right? For the most part.
yep.
Any advice for managing burnout
Mm.
when raising children and having a career?
Yes, yes. Try to avoid those fails that I mentioned earlier. Try to be at, the
Mhm.
things, but also like my biggest answer on this is don't be a perfectionist. Like early on, I learned I had to accept help from other people
Mhm.
and I had to let go. Like you can't care about dust bunnies and a perfectly clean countertop.
Yeah.
I can't anyway, and work and raise 5 kids. You just have to let some of that go. You just have to decide for you what is it you're letting go. Like I
Mhm.
almost never volunteered in the classroom. When I did, like I'm sending store-bought cupcakes. That's just the way it's going to be. I'm not going to spend the time to bake them. So I think it's things
Yeah.
like that. And it really is true like showing up matters more. Like I loved when my kids were little to go be the mystery reader in the classroom
Mhm.
versus being the one, cutting things out for the teacher. Like I was just never going to do.
Oh,
I wanted it
yeah.
to be with my kid.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. You get major points for that.
Yeah.
The kids love it.
Also, this whole like I could get off on a soapbox, this whole like over scheduling, like in our house with 5 kids, there was a
Mhm.
rule you each get one activity at a time. Nobody's
Yeah.
running from piano to soccer to Cub Scouts. Like we don't have time for that. And we had a whiteboard of
Mhm.
chores that kept everybody organized.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think that's always a good reminder too, because you can easily overschedule, especially when
Mhm.
you don't have 5 kids, right? Why
Mhm.
not just sign up, sign up, sign up? I will. That'll be food for thought for
I
me. So
know.
thank you.
I remember my middle guy, Patrice, saying, I said to him something like, But don't you like playing baseball? And he said, I do, but I like the part where we play it out in the yard and there aren't
Oh.
practices and we can play it when we want and we don't have to play it when we want. And that always stuck
Mhm.
with me as like sometimes kids just need free play. And if we're trying to put
Yeah.
them in things, and all of the things tend to be very age specific. This is another soapbox I have. You're like, I
Mhm.
had no
Yeah.
idea she was going to go off on this, but
I love it.
it's like 12U, 11U, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And then kids don't learn how to play across the spectrum, but that neighborhood play where
Mm.
the 12-year-old has to figure out how to involve the 5-year-old in the neighborhood pickup game of baseball, those are
Yeah.
valuable skills because when we get to work, guess what? People have different skills and abilities. They're all across the age spectrum.
Mhm.
And so you can't just work with your little group of people.
That's such a great point. And there's no coach either, right? Or no
Yes.
umpire. You need
You
to
have to
figure
figure it
out,
out.
yeah, who's right, who's right. Like, did you win? Did I win?
Mhm.
Um, that's yeah. I love free play. I do like the cross age mixing. I try to incorporate that more like organically into the kids' lives, but
It's
I know
great.
it's yeah, I'm gonna have a very large reminder list for myself after this call.
Have the feeling of me sitting on your shoulder. Up the trees.
It's good. I need a Sandy right here.
Sure.
So, one thing I don't know about because my kids are 10 and 7. Now that your kids are older, how are you giving them advice about
Mhm.
burnout or just
Mhm.
growing up in general?
Yeah. First of all, it's the realization of like with adult kids, it's much like our coaching practice. You can ask
Mm,
questions and make suggestions, but it's not your decision to make. So it's first getting okay with that. As our kids were heading into college, I always said, college is for exploration and you can
mm.
change your major and life isn't just about money. I know so many people because they come to me through coaching who kind of hate what they do, but they took the safe route. You know, just the other day, I heard people saying, well, I really wanted to be a painter, but accounting made more money, so I did it. And I just
Hmm.
always told my kids, look, I don't want you in the basement on my couch when you're 35, but
Yeah.
also I want you doing what brings you joy. And like our oldest son went even though hearing that, went to school and got an economics degree. And you know what he does now? He coaches tennis because what does he love? Tennis. And is he making a great living coaching tennis? Yes. He was never meant to live in a cube. Like it would have sucked the
Yeah.
soul out of him.
Hmm.
And I'm glad he realized that. And it's,
Hmm.
the degree won't go to waste, but there's so many paths for people, and this whole thing about everyone needs to go to college. I think we've all seen, like, when you need a
Yeah.
plumber, you really want someone to
Hmm.
come and
Absolutely.
help you. You don't need to go to college for that.
Yeah. That's a very good reminder. I love that your kids were allowed to follow that mantra. I hope my kids feel open enough to do that as
They
well.
they will, because if you value that, right? You're not going to
Hmm.
say college at all costs, or
Yeah.
you have to pick the most lucrative role. You're not going to do that. I know you.
Yeah. Yes. I will give you an update in X amount of years. Uh, so let's jump back into the people consulting world. And I thought it was so interesting because when you named your areas that revitalize you, they were almost like people consulting, but just away from work.
Yeah.
And I realized that for me, I I don't know if I talked about this on the show or not, but I thought I was a workaholic, but really I just love learning new things. And I had to adjust myself so that I didn't always go to work as the source to learn new things and be
Mm.
curious. Like I needed to learn things on my own and in just all sorts of areas of my life. Has your work given you any sort of insights, like things that you've learned about yourself
Mm.
through your consulting?
I think it's maybe the doubling down on, well, let me say this, like the tools that I mentioned we use with other people. Of course, we eat our own dog
Yeah.
food, right? Like I know my
Yeah.
own personality profile very well. I know
Hmm.
I'm motivated commercially, and I know I'm motivated by altruism and by affiliation. Like that's,
Hmm.
in the data. And so, yes, when you like, I never thought about it before, but the point you make of, yeah, if I'm going to go volunteer at my church, I am kind of doing my work there, right? Like you can see where it fills my bucket of altruism and of
Hmm.
affiliate. My work reminds me that those are the things that are important to me, and I have to get those buckets filled up somewhere.
Yeah. I bring it up because it seems like a conversation everyone should have with themselves,
Mhm.
and you don't usually have time to think about that
Yeah.
or inclination to. So yeah, that's for the listeners. Um, And the other thing I wanted to bring up that you shared with me in when we were on retreat in Puerto Rico, when you were having, I think, one-on-ones, you didn't expect, I think, the men to have equivalent reactions to the women. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, yes. Like in coaching senior leaders, it surprised me. I'm no longer surprised by it, but I know it
Yeah.
surprised you when I shared it.
Yeah.
But like, I think so often people hear about women have imposter syndrome and women need to break out of imposter syndrome. But I actually learned through my work and coaching, many men very much suffer from that because they are kind of sold a bill of goods about what that tough, strong corporate leader is. And they somehow have come, not all, I mean, this is a generalization, they've come to
Yeah.
feel like I have to have a persona and I have to have all the answers.
Mhm.
But they're in fact just regular, fragile human beings inside there. I think of it, I
Yeah.
call them like the French bread. They've got this crust on the outside, but they're really kind of soft once you break through the crust. And so
Hmm.
I would have multiple male executives in coaching sessions, um, just start crying because it's hard to live two lives. And
Mhm.
so many of them felt like they had to live this facade
Mhm.
and they couldn't bring their true self forward, and it would come out in coaching.
I think I'm also encouraged by the
Mhm,
fact that when they did open up to you, so there was
mhm,
a release valve, but also I feel like that's information everyone should have. Like,
mhm.
oh, we are having a human experience. It is
Yeah,
not just
yeah,
a gendered experience that,
yes,
women can, have a facade or anything.
yep.
Um, so when you're in scenarios like that, do you find that after the session, the men are able to, I guess, become a bit more authentic or or break down the facade?
It's a mixed bag. Some
Yeah.
can't get past whatever their past has told them, but
Hmm.
definitely, and I can see their faces rolling in my brain right now. There are plenty who
Yeah.
do, and I think it comes in just helping them see things like what we know. Well,
Hmm.
some of us know, I guess, from the research, like vulnerability actually increases followership. And so
Hmm.
acting like you have the answer all the time, if you think that's going to make you a better leader, is counterintuitive. And
Yeah.
so helping them figure out when you say to your team, I actually don't know, and I'd love to hear from all of you, you're getting more buy-in from the team and letting those people grow. Like, what a relief some of them have when they
Yeah.
realize, oh, thank God I don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
I can actually rely on these well-paid, highly trained people. And there's like, they breathe a sigh of relief that they don't have to know everything.
Yeah. And it's actually better for
Yeah.
them to voice that they don't know everything and
Yes.
rely on their team. That yeah, that's huge. Can you talk a little bit more about the science behind that? Just selfishly, because I've been saying this for so long that I feel like as leaders, we need to be asking more questions and having a fluid dialogue with other team members and not just our direct reports, but just as an organization, there
Yeah.
has to be an expectation that other people have valid answers and can point out risks and spot opportunities. So I would love to hear more from your
Yeah.
science hat.
Well, my science hat first panicked when I was hearing you ask that question, because I was like, oh, it's been a minute since I've been able to cite chapter and verse on research.
Yeah,
Am I in my dissertation defense? What's happening? Um, but I
yeah.
immediately went to, there's something called the sleeper effect in
Mhm.
psychology, which is
Mhm.
you can gather all this information and you can't recall exactly where it came from. So I'm
Yeah.
going to cite the sleeper effect, Patrice, and say, I can't tell you exactly who has said this, but I will
Mhm.
say Adam Grant is an IO psychologist. He's,
Yeah.
the most famous one of us. So look at
Mhm.
anything
Yeah.
Adam Grant is talking about, it's going to be steeped in science. There's a scientist named Tomas Chamorro, blanking on it.
Mhm.
But he's an IO psychologist who does a ton of research on leadership characteristics. And,
Mhm.
the TLDR is there are many feminine characteristics that actually create better leadership.
Oh,
And
interesting.
the world needs to look at people who have those characteristics, i.e., mostly women, for
Mhm.
companies that are going to have better ROI and that kind of thing. So
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't quite answer
Yeah.
you, but
No, that's enough. I just need takeaways.
okay.
You know me by now. Like I will
Good enough.
gather all my information. I find that fascinating. What is, I guess, the most interesting area that you studied? And if I'm going too
Yes.
far down a
Yeah.
rabbit hole, let me know. But
Yeah.
I'm always interested to find out if what made people love their subject matter
Yeah.
when they were learning it is still something that they use or think about, or if it was something that they just loved and it was a point in time.
Yeah. When I knew what I was meant to do, right, when I chose the field of IO psychology, it was when I realized I could work in a business setting and still study the human mind. Because I, like
Mhm.
most people, thought, you know, psychology was clinical psychology. I thought I was
Yeah.
getting a psych degree so I could go on to law school and, actually
Hmm.
work in business.
Yeah.
So I was relieved to hear, oh no, I can work in a business setting. So
Hmm.
once I got there and I got to grad school, there's kind of two parts of IO psychology, the I and the O. And
Hmm.
I went the I route, which means statistics of creating tests and assessments and looking at validation studies of
Hmm.
like, how do you select people and what predicts performance on the job? And how do you decide the criteria that you're trying to predict? Because if the criteria is different, the predictive power is different. And
Yeah.
the O people were doing things like talking about team dynamics and motivation. And I remember a classmate was very into that, and we took our qualifying exams together. And he moved in with my husband and me for 6 weeks, and we just had a deal of like, you get me through the hard part, Sandy, and I'll get you through the touchy feely part. Um, and of course, though, what is the big ha, ha in all of this is most of my career has been spent on what people would call the O side.
Oh.
Because team dynamics and motivation and how people work together, there is
Hmm.
definitely science behind that, right? But
Yeah.
that's where most of my career ended up. But at the beginning, what I loved was like I have a stats minor, and who
Hmm.
most people don't think psychology and stats go together, but I
Hmm.
love the yes, there is a way to predict performance on the job, and I can put things in a regression analysis and figure
Hmm.
out which of these tests best predict and how to put them together. Like I loved that part.
Yeah.
I don't personally do as much of that now. We still do like 50% of what we do at Lodestone is executive assessment. So we're still doing that. I just have personally
Yeah.
left a lot of that for my team to do. And I love doing the team stuff.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely see how PE firms love working with you, right? You just have that, you have that brain, you have that mind.
Well, it's like, I just go a little bit crazy when people talk in some sort of, ethereal way about people stuff. And it's like, I do love to surprise them a little bit with, well, I'm, predicting variance. You guys want to talk about R squared? Like, let's go.
Yeah. That's great. Oh,
And 8
perfect.
people laughed because that was
Yeah.
a very geeky comment for me to make.
I mean, the demographics of the show, I think that was a win. That was a win right
Okay.
there.
People are like, R
um, yeah. So when it comes to building your own team and having your own company, what is it that you're doing on that front that you wish other leaders were doing when they're building their own companies?
yeah. Starting with the foundation of what's required for this role and this business and doing that in a systematic way. I'd love it if they brought in IO psychologists to do what we call job analysis, but even if they
Mm,
don't, there's a practical approach to thinking, even just sitting down and thinking, we need someone who does strategic thinking. We need
mhm.
someone who does execution. They're often not the same persons. If you get them in one
Yeah.
person, great. We need someone who, is I don't know, is good at going out to the market and finding clients, right? Like at some
Mhm.
basic
Yeah.
level, thinking about what does this business require,
Mhm.
um, and thinking more broadly than the functional skills. This is what I wish people would do in particular. So,
Mhm.
like, if you're me and like if I'm the small business owner, yeah, I care that people have an IO psychology background, but I
Mhm.
know that alone doesn't suffice. And if someone can demonstrate competencies that are related and they don't
Mhm.
have the degree or the pedigree or whatever, then I want to talk to them. I wish more businesses did that. Like where I get a
Mhm.
little bit crazy with clients is they're looking for this unicorn of, yeah, I need a CFO from Ivy League and they should have had public experience. And I'm like, why? You're a privately held company. Like, I don't understand, like
Yeah.
they've got in their mind what they think they need. And really what they're
Mhm.
doing is those are surrogates. And so what I try to do is
Mhm.
get them to say what they really need, because what they really, when it comes down to it, they say something like, I need them to keep up with me. and I need them to think quickly and I need them to learn in our ever-changing business. And I'm like, okay, I can
Hmm.
work with that. Because what I hear are the competencies of resilience,
Hmm.
change ready, smart, good decision making. And so
Yeah.
I can measure those. And I can find those in a lot of places that don't have Ivy League degrees and all the list and 10 years of experience. And so
Yeah.
this has a long way of saying I want people to think about transferable competencies because that's the way I built our team. So
Hmm. That makes complete sense. I'm just looking or thinking about every single job description that I've seen before.
yeah, so many of them are tragic. They're like
Hmm.
5 to 10 years experience. And I'm like, why? If I can prove, sometimes people just have butts in seats. What if I sat
Yeah,
for 5 to 7 mediocre years? That's silly.
that's so true. So, do you think it's just because people don't know about it, or do you think there's some other block?
I do think, I always say IO psychology has a PR problem. I think a lot of
Mm.
people don't realize there are scientists specifically trained in behavior at work who can help you. Besides that, I think, everyone interacts with people all day long. And so there can be this armchair psychologist, like, well, I know how to do this because I
Yeah.
talk to people all the time. I think that's what gets in the way. And I think
Hmm.
sometimes there's a hubris, to be blunt about it, Patrice, at least
Yeah.
in some, I won't say in our clients because we only want to work with the good ones, but maybe in the people that we don't work with in the industry, there are
Hmm.
people who think, I've always been the smartest person in the room and
Hmm.
I'm great at financial engineering. And so I can't ask for help in another area. I'm going to bluster and pretend that,
Mm.
back to that French bread, right? Like I'm going to bluster
Yeah.
and pretend that I know people too. And it's like, son, I'm here to tell you, you don't. So
Yeah.
why don't you ask for some help?
Yeah. So, uh, what are those conversations like? Like, are there a decent amount of breakthroughs there?
There are. It almost like you're presenting results on, say, their CFO candidates, and you're also
Yeah.
kind of coaching in the moment because you're
Hmm.
helping them through this. You didn't need to have known this on your own. There's no way you could have known this on your own. You don't have to beat
Yeah.
yourself up that you didn't know this on your own. So there is a little
Yeah.
bit of that. And then frankly, there are some people who, like, I don't know. I just say, like, I am kind of too old and tired to be an evangelist. I don't want to push a rock uphill
Yeah.
convincing you that this field and this science matters. If you believe people matter to
Hmm.
your ROI and you believe there might be experts who can help you with it and you're willing to
Yeah.
pay for that, please call me. But if you
Hmm.
need me to convince you of that, I just don't have the energy. Like ages
Yeah.
ago, my husband's he was an automotive engineer when I first said this, but one
Hmm.
day, very frustrated, I said to him, "You don't understand what it's like. Could you imagine if you had to convince people every day that putting brakes on a car was necessary?" And they were like, "Well, I don't know. Does everyone else put brakes on a car? Can you bring me the data that suggests we should put brakes on the car?" Like
Yeah.
this is what it feels like to me because I'm like, it's so obvious if you
Hmm.
know it, right? And I
Yeah.
know anyway, that was a bit of a rant, but I just don't have the energy to convince people.
I think that is a very relatable feeling.
And maybe that
And,
goes back to your burnout, right? Like I would burn myself
yeah.
out trying to convince people. And it's
Hmm.
like, you know what? The market is big enough. God
Yeah.
bless you if you think you can do it on your own. I'm going to go over here and help these people.
Yeah. I think that is a breakthrough thought right there because there's probably listeners right now that are still trying to evangelize their field or their expertise or their project or something. Like, you could just pivot away from the people that don't get it because they just might not get it.
Yeah. I bet your total addressable market, whatever you're doing, is way
Mhm.
bigger than you can handle. So just go to another part of it.
Yeah. I love it. I feel free, and that's not even
Yay!
my my actual problem. Oh, that's great. I've loved every second of this. I feel like a lot of the listeners are going to want to follow up with you. So, how can they reach you, get in touch with you, or any other announcements you want to make to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
listeners?
Oh. Wow. Okay. Well, first of all, they really can. Sometimes I have seen people say, like, oh, I saw this person on a podcast. No way, though, would they make time for me. No, I will.
Mhm.
So I love to connect with people and I love to network, is why I'm doing this. So you can
Mhm.
certainly find me on LinkedIn. You can email me at Lodestone. I don't know if you do that thing where you put up contact information or you need me to say it, but I can
We
be,
can add it to
yeah.
the post. Yeah.
So I honestly, if you fall in that camp of, wow, I didn't know there was such a thing and I'd love to hear more about this. Remember, I do want to talk to you. If you think, oh, I can do
Mhm.
it on my own, maybe don't call me. But
Yeah.
if you want to explore more about that, please call me. The
Mhm.
other thing I would say is I love mentoring people younger in their career, and
Mhm.
particularly women younger in their career than me. And so I would give a special shout out to that group if anyone
Mm.
wants to explore the field or have deeper conversations on how to avoid some of my burnout fails. Happy to do that. And kind of
Nice.
related to that, I guess the one announcement I would say is Lodestone's Women in Leadership Retreat is already planned for this year. It's September
Ooh.
2nd through the 5th. We're going to be covering content like how to get a seat at the table, what are best practices in human capital. We'll be using some of our assessments and helping people
Mm.
build their development plans. And it's at an amazing ranch in Colorado. And so people want more information. By people, let me be clear, if women, and we're only taking 8 women. So
Oh, wow.
it's like
Okay.
a small group, but like a cohort where you can really get together with these folks. So if anyone
Oh,
wants to
that's
know
awesome.
more about that, that's up
Mhm.
on our website too.
That is compelling, right? You might have to fight me for one of those spots,
I
any
know.
listeners.
Come on.
um, great. Well, thank you so much, Sandy.
Yeah.
This has been amazing. Thank you to all the listeners. Come find us on YouTube and remember to like and subscribe and all those good things.
Oh,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Bye.
Bye.